Hello, everybody, and welcome to Music Industry Insights Worldwide. And today I have the amazing Casper with me. How are you, Casper?
I'm good. I'm not too bad. It's pretty foggy around Cardiff today. Um, Wales, but that's standard. What do you expect?
Wow,
Uh,
it's not much better in London, honestly. So, yeah, I'll bless you and thank you for coming on the show today. I hope you
I
feel
think you.
blessed. So, tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, what you do, and where you're from.
So, my name's Casper.
Yeah.
My pronouns are he, him. I'm based up in Cardiff in Wales, and I grew up in kind of rural Wales, and moved to the city about 3 years ago because I wanted to pursue a career in music, if that's really a thing. But I started up a punk band when I was 15,
Wow.
um, called TELGATE, and I'm still in that punk band. Um, and then the punk band that I'm in is very much about kind of angry queer liberation, like. And
Right.
then on the other side of things, I'm doing this. I've got a project called TranSform Music, where I'm basically training up and providing guidelines to music venues all across Wales, to help them become more trans inclusive and understand trans safeguarding better. So I get my frustration out in the evenings with the gigs, and
Yeah,
then in the day, I'm a little bit more kind and proactive.
brilliant.
But
Well done. So it's kind of like, so do you do initiatives and training and educational programs? Tell us a little bit more about the projects.
so Transform, my project with Beacons Cymru, kind of formed. It formed as an idea originally. I just knew I wanted to make the music scene
Yeah,
um better. There's a huge lack of representation in the
100%.
music, and I wondered where that came from. Um, I wondered what the obviously it's easy to just say, well, it's just because of general underrepresentation of trans people and the marginalized status. But I was wondering what barriers are really keeping that division, keeping that underrepresentation up in the
Yeah,
music scene. So I was lucky to get some funding from the Outsane Fund, which is through Anthem Cymru. Anthem Cymru, a really great organisation
yeah,
in Wales, and fund a lot of grassroots music projects.
great.
So I got this funding, and I started I started doing research into trans people's experiences across the UK, well, England and Wales at least.
Yeah.
Um, and the research was for people that were working in the music industry, so trans and non-binary people working in the industry,
So,
trans and non-binary.
yeah.
Sorry, go.
So you're looking at professionals as well as performers.
Yeah, professionals, performers, and people that attend live music too. So there were two separate categories there. And it was quite general. It was trying to suss out what are the barriers that people are facing, what are the positive and negative experiences people are facing,
Yeah.
uh, and the results of that work. There was some. I mean, there was some really really lovely parts of the research. It showed how important representation was, how much more empowered people felt through representation. Like, I don't have the figures on me right now, which is quite silly, but there was a clear kind of pattern of when people had seen more trans people performing,
Yeah.
they felt more comfortable presenting as the gender that they identify with in live music spaces from
Yeah.
there on.
Yeah.
Um,
Ability, yeah.
so and yeah, I think it's something that we can probably a lot of us can relate to, as trans and non-binary people, is like when you see someone else do it, you think, well, I can do it too,
Of course.
um,
Of course.
which is baseline of representation. But yeah, from this research, then what I found is that it was there was a lot of people that were experiencing harassment and assault in music venues, and music venues were not uh a lot. Well, I mean, like, most people did not feel comfortable reporting. I think like it was around like 59% of people
Right.
didn't feel safe reporting incidents to staff anyway. But of those that did report, whether they worked in the music industry or whether they were just attending live music, 25% of all people that did say that they reported an incident of transphobia said that no follow-up actions were taken at all at music venues.
Yeah, and I think it's a lack of education and understanding and even from security venues that actually run events. I think there's a whole bag of things: discrimination, lack of understanding, even when you're reporting, even to the police. I think there's lots of different kind of things that go on.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is a fear as well of police involvement, which is why venues kind of need to learn about dealing with it in-house.
Yeah, have this training and understanding, like you said, would be great. It'd be really interesting to get the results of some of the research that you've done, actually, because as you know, I'm doing that PhD. So any kind of information around that would be fantastic.
Totally, I'll send those over to you actually. But I would like to I'd like to publish the research findings anyway as well. I think there's some really important stuff in there.
Yeah.
Really important stuff. And I think we're hoping now. So towards the end of January.
Yes.
We're aiming to release the report then.
Fantastic.
It'll be so the report is more so it's more so guidelines but there's parts of the statistics and the research kind of amongst the guidelines for music venues. So that will be publicly available for anyone that wants to access it. It'll be out there for them, whether fails or not.
Yes, we need this. And there's such a massive gap of data as well. When I'm looking at data sets, we often get male, female, and then non-binary, but there's just not that collection around trans at the moment. So that's another thing I'm pushing for, is a UK-wide collection of this data, but having an option in or out. We can kind of mean that confidentiality if you want to. Because I remember I've had a chat with the Musicians Union, who've obviously done the musician census 2023, who are saying that at least 60% of people that identify as trans don't come out in the workplace. And again, that's due to harassment, stigma, discrimination, and lack of opportunities, because that does exist in the industry. And again, these things have to be addressed. So I'm so glad.
I think it's a really difficult thing with the music industry is that we work in a very non-traditional way.
Yes.
And most kind of workplaces, they've got you've got HR and you've got all these kind of different levels, and there's rules and there's rights and workers' rights and stuff. But most of us are working freelance, and not just freelance. We're also just working so non-traditionally. So it's so like sometimes I think the music industry can feel like more of like a party almost.
Playground. Yeah, almost. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
It really is. And it can be quite lawless.
Yeah. I think that's another thing. But now we've got CISA that's coming out as well. So that's also a great organization that's out there to protect all kind of discrimination and harassment and bullying, which I think is such a great and a needed thing that we should have right now as well.
Yeah. There's a lot going on there. But I think a majority of workplaces and employees and venues and people in the industry, a lot of people, they don't mean harm.
Yeah.
They don't mean to get it wrong. They don't mean to do nothing because they want to do nothing. What I found I did focus groups recently with music venues.
Yeah.
With Sarah, one of my someone that I work with, and we found that these venues they're really scared of getting it wrong.
Right.
And because they're afraid of getting it wrong, they often find themselves just kind of static. Yeah, and they don't make any moves because they don't want to just don't the right move.
Well, I totally get that, actually. And I think that's another way of looking at it, is having that education, having that training, ensuring that we get pronouns right, how we address people, having the right toilets, the situation for the toilets now. I think there's a lot more awareness around being trans, but I transitioned 12 years ago, and I think I was discussing this with a lot of people that maybe 4 years ago, it was a taboo subject. It wasn't even talked about. It was something that we didn't really discuss. And only the main reason why I do discuss it so much now in the music industry is because we don't have the role models and representation and education for that to happen. Otherwise, in my normal general life, I don't just go around saying, "Oh, have a badge on saying I'm a trans woman." I don't think that's appropriate, and I don't. That's not how I live my life, you know. But I think we need this education. We need people to understand the issues, the barriers, the struggles, and to make it more inclusive and diverse, because it's really not at the moment. It could be so much better.
No, people don't realize how rough it is out there.
Yeah.
Because we're so something that trans people and LGBT people in general are really really good at is just holding our heads up high
Yeah.
and putting on a big confident costume, basically. Like, it's a costume confidence that, and we sell it, but they're not seeing the amount that is going on in the background or in front of their eyes. Sometimes microaggressions are something that people really don't pick up on. They don't even see it's happening. They don't hear them. But as someone receiving a microaggression, you know when you're receiving a microaggression.
You certainly
Trying
do.
to someone that something is a microaggression is hard enough, because they're like, why does that matter? And it's like,
And some of it's
well,
discrimination that's so indirect as well that people don't even understand that. And I think that's also another thing is I think sometimes people don't realize how harmful that can be to people going through dysphoria, going through, you know, all these different changes that might be going on and not feeling comfortable in your own skin. So there's all these things that come into play, right? So understanding
totally.
those things too is super important.
I think it's really interesting the point you brought up about kind of, in your day-to-day life, like not running around with a badge saying like I'm trans, but in
Yeah.
music really feeling that requirement almost to do
Yeah.
so, because
Yeah.
representation, I feel for it so much. I've always kind of said, like, haven't chosen to be an activist.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
kind of have to, because if in music, as a trans person, if I don't take the lead in talking about my transness, other people will take the lead in talking about my transness, you know?
I think also it's about making sure that that's authentic and original from the communities in which we represent, because I think authenticity does count and people can see that.
Mm-hmm.
That does concern me sometimes is there has been a trend of recent times of where some people think it's cool to be a trans person when actually it's far from being cool. It's especially trans women. I think we're always in the firing line and it's not glitz and glam and it's not all what
No.
some see on social media. And this is another thing where I like to share that real lived experience with people and say that it's not always what you see on TV or what you think it might be. You know,
But
change
also
it.
that there is too a massive problem with kind of, what do they call it, trauma porn, they call it, kind of people kind of, the media kind of just feeds these sob stories. It
Yeah.
always has, it centers tragedy when talking about trans narratives, and I think it's really important to, it's, in your creative spaces, in your music, in your art, in your performance, to have this, have, it doesn't even have to be joy, but have this other story going on. It's like, just
Ability.
by you show that you're alive,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you can keep being alive, and you can keep living, and that you are multifaceted. And people really don't get exposed to that. You'd be surprised, I think, like, people would be surprised, like, how many people think that they've never met a trans person before,
And they
and
have.
all they know of trans people is like weird BBC documentaries and stuff that make us out like we're living a really strange lives. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, go to Greg's every morning.
Normal
Nothing.
life. We are here. Yeah. Not aliens from another country. And I think that's what people need to understand. And I think more and more, especially the younger generations, get that. But I do think sometimes maybe there's the older generations that struggle more with that understanding and that empathy and that relatability, I guess. But I think now more so the younger generations are more open and understanding and accepting of that, which is great. What's it like in Wales? Because I'm here in London, you know, so we do have a big community of trans people here, but God, what's it like in Wales?
Oh, so I think the same. I think Cardiff is very different
Yeah,
to a lot of parts of Wales.
yeah,
So rural Wales, living in rural Wales, being trans.
It's like
not
the in the
not
village.
all, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so there is a lot of I mean, I think in terms of like countryside, but also especially like the valleys and stuff. You know, most of my family are from the Rhondda valleys,
Yeah.
and sadly, the Rhondda and most of our valleys have kind of been, you know, they've kind of been, they've not really been very well looked after in
Mm.
terms of education, opportunities, and resources, which does mean that there can sometimes they can their kind of general views of the communities, they can take a little bit longer
Yeah.
to get to where we're at in the city. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so there is there is a misunderstanding in a lot of Wales, I think, a kind of fear of change in a
Yeah.
way too, fear of new things.
Yeah.
But in Cardiff itself, Cardiff has got a beautiful, beautiful trans and queer scene, and it's only getting better.
It's that.
Um, I think, you know, from my perspective at least, so I've been out now, oh God, like 8 years or something. I came out quite young. So when I was younger, as far as I'm aware,
Yeah.
there wasn't much going on for trans people in Cardiff and in Wales.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, like you were saying earlier, like even back then, like people just didn't speak about transness. Like
No.
if you said trans, you've got to explain it. Like when I came out to my mum,
Yeah.
I had to say what trans was to my mum and what that meant for me. You know, like it's not this like it wasn't something that is as publicized as it is now. But yeah, Cardiff these days, it's got a beautiful trans scene. We've got so many like arts collectives of trans and queer people around here.
Yeah.
Club nights that, you know, trans people is putting on for each other. We've got a lot of kind of queer bands and stuff. I'm kind of seeing like a boom. I'm seeing like a kind of like queer rock revolution happening in Cardiff.
Liberty
It's
of
really
freedom. Yeah.
and we've got like we have we have a mutual aid collective called Trans Aid Cymru, who do some really really great work. And they're just mutual aid, so it's all just kind of voluntary run. Trans people helping other trans people. And they provide meals for people if people can't get meals or struggle with cooking and stuff.
Yeah.
They donate towards people's surgery fundraisers. They
That's
give grants out, like emergency grants. So if you're struggling to pay your bills one month,
fantastic.
um, TransAid will help pay your bills and stuff. Like really, really good stuff happening. And it's all just because the community's buckled up and just does it for each other. We're not waiting for anyone else to.
Lovely. I love to hear that. And how's that kind of impacted you in your career? And, having these kind of obstacles where you've had to move away from your original place of birth, where you live with your family, you've had to move to a big city where you've probably been on your own and had to find new friends, build a new community for yourself. How's that affected you?
Um, I think personally, I think it's the best thing ever for me. Like, I couldn't live in the country my whole life. I love the countryside. I do want to move back to the countryside now. Not gonna lie. I'm like always trying to find a little cottage that I can go and rent and stuff. But yeah, I had to move up here. It's not even a trans. It's nothing to relate to being trans really. It is just
Music.
how it works. If you want if
It's
you want a job,
You've
you
got
gotta
to
go.
go where music is, right? You can't expect it to come to you. Yeah.
That yeah. So I had to come up here, but I kind of entered Cardiff with with a community that just met me with open arms, basically. Because when I moved to Cardiff, it was 2020, just after lockdown. I didn't actually have anywhere to go at that point.
Right.
Um, and uh, someone I knew called Iggy Rose took me in
I
and
know.
was like, you can stay at us."
Oh,
Um,
fantastic.
and Iggy was a trans person and became my best friend.
Oh,
and they just kind of introduced me to all of these trans people and everything. They put me up for like 3 months, told me like don't pay any rent and stuff like that. Just stay here until you can get off the ground.
That is so
Um,
nice.
so it was an instant, like I was instantly shown through Iggy that like you know, trans people, we help each other out. Like
There is a
we
community of us. We do support each other, yeah.
totally, yeah. There's that kind of unconditional love for, I think, between trans siblings. Is like even if I don't get along with you, even if you really annoying or something like that, you know, like I'm gonna be, if you need to be protected, then I will do what I can to protect you. And I think that's how we kind of see each other.
Yeah, that's that solidarity there. And it's also about kind of making sure that we look out for each other and support each other. Because again, there's that homelessness, there's lack of finances, there's a lack of opportunities, there's a lack of jobs, there's so many different things coming into play. And even if you're from a multiracial background or a black background, it's even harder than some people that are even in that white privilege, you know. So
Mm,
so many things
totally.
might come into play. That it's so nice to hear that we all support each other, especially over in Wales as well, and that there's that community of support and understanding. That sounds fantastic.
Mhm. As well, I think through music, the kind of the scene has become like, it's just become so much more trans inclusive. When I turned up in the music scene when I was 15, it
Yeah.
was not like it's now. It was weird. People would say really weird things to you that would be working at these venues and stuff like that, and you couldn't say anything about it because I'd be the only trans person about,
Well, that's happened
doing.
many times, even now, even in London right now, it still happens, you know. You have to keep showing up.
But I think because we're so small, because we're such a small town, um, once we kind of did start putting our foot down and being like, this is how you treat trans people, this is how it's going to be from here on, and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
then more trans bands and stuff started kind of turning up and people were coming out. Um, you can't, I don't think you could get away with that kind of stuff anymore because we've kind of, us like the trans punk bands in Cardiff have kind of, we've really like put our foot down.
Good.
And you can't, you just, there still is trans, don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of transphobia.
It's,
um
it's got
there's
worse.
still a lot
It's
of hate
got
crime.
worse, actually. Yeah.
Way worse. But in
Yeah.
terms of like, in terms of venues saying and doing things like themselves, in terms of like just an open overt bigotry, you would not be able to get away with
Yeah.
really
And
anymore in our music scene, which is good because we've only got like 6 music venues, so word gets around.
good. Good. Oh, that's fantastic. And the work you're doing sounds amazing. You've got to keep that up. Has it affected your mental health? And have you felt discriminated at times in the industry?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's massively affected my mental health, and it still does, to be honest.
Yeah.
uh, this
Same.
feeling
Right.
this feeling of being an outsider that's fledged on you is impossible to escape, because even if my local community is used to me now, knows me now, and they're good to me, um when I'm outside of that bubble, which is the music scene, like the Welsh music scene, I get faced with the reality of what the rest of the world's like.
Yes.
uh, and it's just this realization that I probably can't really expect in my lifetime to ever not be treated like an outsider.
What
Um,
yeah.
because I wait, you wake up in the morning and you'll be. I live in a house with another trans musician, like, but so I should feel safe and good. But I wake up and I go on my phone while I'm having a coffee, and I'm just, it's just drivel. It's just loads of transphobic drivel. It's everywhere. There's certain places you can't go to. There's certain, you never know whether to say when you go to a venue, or when you've got a new opportunity. You never know whether to say you're trans or not, and it's really difficult because if I want to talk about my job,
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
got to mention the trans part. Um, But what I find myself doing a lot of the time is if I meet someone in a venue or in a space or something, and they ask me what I do for work, I tell them that I work for I work for making venues safer for cis women.
Right.
I always say, yeah, I'm helping help cis women out and stuff, because I don't know if it's safe for me to mention, for me to out myself. Like,
Well, that's not
I
nice for you to feel like that.
it's really it's put me in
An
it's
awkward
put me in
position.
difficult situations before. I think
Yeah.
the feeling of never being able to kind of just get on with it and not think about, being outward and stuff has really got me down at times, and made me suicidal and stuff in the past too. It's been it I'm seen as very confident, but it does
Gets you.
it,
It does. Of course it
it
does. You can't see what's
that's
going on.
important.
Hmm.
Having people that you can cry to about that don't just go, oh, that must be so hard, but say, it is so hard, I
I
get it.
understand you, and I've been through it myself. So yeah, it's having that relatability, and I think that's another thing. It's empowering each other, and it's kind of supporting each other and helping each other, but being there for each other. Like you said, you can't do it by yourself, and having that is super beneficial. So I'm so glad you have that, because you really do need it. I'm sorry to hear that as well.
It's
Like,
why it's important music, I think, as well, because when we're in our worst points,
yeah,
where do like, we usually stick our headphones on or blast some music or something.
yeah,
And so having other trans musicians who are singing or creating music that you can relate to on that level, and the level of talking about dysphoria or
oh,
discrimination or
yeah,
just life, um that heals you. We use music to heal, and we don't need people to be the same as us for them to heal us. But as trans people hearing another trans person's voice, sometimes it's like, oh my god, what a relief,
yeah. Definitely. And what would you like to kind of see improve, like over the next couple of years? I know you're doing your great kind of research, but what are the next steps after you've done that, and what you're looking to do next?
So research phases are over right now, and we're currently in the process of creating our training packages. So I'm going to be getting up what six areas of Wales
Yeah,
will be offered training
fantastic.
in February to February for free as well. But I think this needs to be something that goes
Yeah,
further than Wales. Personally, I think everywhere should be receiving this sort of thing. I think it should be going further than just music venues. I basically like there's just two of us on the team,
yeah,
TranSform, so it's baby steps basically. But I think it should be going further than just music venues getting training. I think music organizations, music businesses,
yes.
ev- and everywhere outside of music too, everyone should be receiving trans inclusivity training. It should be, if you want it, you should be able to have it, and it should be accessible.
That, and we need to be protected, and people need to understand the issues that we go through, some of the challenges, some of the surgeries, gender reassignment. There's so many different things that we need to discuss, and that we need to ensure that workers are protected as well. So hopefully
Yeah,
we get there, and if you ever need any help, please do let me know. Always here to help as well. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
If people want to find you, or they want to find you on Instagram, or find out more about your work that you do, Casper, where can they find you?
So search up www.beacons.com/transform.
Yeah,
Um, that's just the kind of landing page for the Transform project. In January, the report will be going up on there as well. So you can go on to, if you search that up, you'll be able to find the report and guidelines for music venues.
yeah,
Um, and then on Instagram, we're just at Transform Music. Um, so you can find TranSform on there as well and keep up to date with it. Even though I'm awful with social media, I'm really rubbish.
don't
I'm
worry.
good at posting memes and stuff, but I'm really bad at the professional side of marketing. So
Understandable. At least you're honest, and there might be some trans listeners that would love to connect with you. It's nice to have that community. And also, I'll leave the description, your bio in the description below, with all these links in as well. thank you so much for your time today. It's been
Ah,
amazing talking to you.
good to speak to you. Always great.
Keep up
Um,
the amazing work.
Cardiff soon.
Yeah, 100% I will. And don't forget to send us all the bits and pieces. We need to catch up again. I've got some things to share with you in the new year as well. So let's definitely have another catch up.
Yeah, let's have a catch up soon. Totally.
Take
Yeah, great to see you.
you and you. Lots of love. Bye. Bye.